Good evening. I'm Rita Verde, your Arts Consortium Board President, welcoming you to our April membership meeting. Like most organizations in this day and time, we are bringing this meeting to you via video. Our first item on our agenda is reviewing and approving our minutes, and we'd like to ask you to please check those out, and if there are any additions or deletions that need to be made, please let us know via email. Our membership invite is next on our agenda, and we'd like to invite you to become a member if you aren't already. There's a lot of perks to joining the Arts Consortium. If you have any fellow artist friends that you feel would like to be a member of our Arts Consortium, please invite them. We would like to have our announcements be done by PDF file. If you could please send those to us in that format to hello@artsconsortium.org, and we will make sure to get those announcements. We will now have our Executive Director's report being given by Ampelio Mejia. He will update you on the current happenings of the Arts Consortium and how we're conducting business, again in this day and time.
Hi everyone, my name is Ampelio Mejia Perez. I am the Executive Director of the Arts Consortium, which is Tulare County's designated arts council. And I'm very glad to be here with you guys tonight. I want to thank you all, first of all, for any and all of your efforts to make sure that our community stays safe and healthy. And just like to remind you guys that until further notice, unfortunately, the Arts Consortium and the Old Lumberyard are closed to the general public. But we had our very first virtual First Friday on April 3rd, which was really amazing. We have Nate Norman to thank. He brought in his perler bead art, which is really amazing, kind of toes the line between sculpture and painting, and it's really quite mind-blowing to see all the color matching and all the detail, and how meticulous the art form actually is. I want to thank Pet Kamsesori, who came in and helped us videotape, Susan Leary. These folks are doing an amazing job. Thank you very much for being here. Of course, we want to thank our marketing coordinator and our graphic designer, Pam and Ed, respectively. Thank you guys very much for keeping everyone informed in all the beautiful layouts that we've grown accustomed to. Thank you very much. Congratulations to Mariah, Moriyah, as the winner of our First Friday raffle. Your question was answered by Nate, and your name came out of the hat. So congratulations, Mariah. Please send us an email at hello@artsconsortium.org, and I will make sure to figure out a way to get that piece home to you. So thank you very much for commenting and for joining us for our special virtual First Friday. Our next First Friday show is actually going to be the Mental Health Awareness Month show, featuring artwork by folks at the My Voice Media Center. For those of you who don't know, the My Voice Media Center is an outreach and advocacy program designed to provide art instruction to adults who have any kind of experience with mental health issues, whether it's their own diagnosis or a family member, or if they just provide support to a friend, then they're welcome to come on in and learn some art skills. We have anything from videography, photography, to the traditional art forms like painting and printmaking. As far as speaking of the My Voice Media Center, our hours are changed a little bit. If you were looking to come on in, we have closed to the general public, but we are providing comfort kits so that you can make art at home. And we are doing that between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. and this is Monday through Friday. So if you or a loved one could use a little comfort kit, a little art kit, so that you can make some art while we wait all this out, then please give us a call. Let us know the names of the people who will be receiving these comfort kits, and we'll make sure to have those for you. As far as the My Voice Media Center too, some of our new services include our weekly calls that we're making to make sure that everybody is still, keeping in a good mood. So if you would like your name to be added to this calling list, please let us know. Once again, you can email hello@artsconsortium.org, and we'll make sure to add your phone number to this calling list. Again, it's a weekly calling list that we have going on to make sure that folks are keeping in high spirits. We are also making sure to put on as many of our art sessions as we can online, basic instruction that you can do at home. So once again, thank you all very much for bearing with us and for improvising with us, and thank you for all your support. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Please enjoy the lecture and demo from our very own board member, Brent Hudspeth. It's amazing. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you again next membership meeting.
Please remember that our next Monday membership meeting will be on May the 11th. Please join us at that time. Now we would like to have our presentation done by artist Brent Hudspeth, a very talented artist who also happens to be one of our board of directors.
Hi everyone, I'm Brent Hudspeth. I'm here at the Arts Consortium, and welcome to the meeting for April. I'm very honored to be able to be giving a presentation. Most of us are biding our time, enjoying ourselves at home with family, and hopefully soon we'll be able to come back to our meetings and mingle with each other and share some of our, probably some of our adventures that we've enjoyed while we've had this time off from the regular schedule. The influences that I've had are a great many, and I'm going to get into that as well as some of the structural things I use to do some of the work that I enjoy doing. Specifically the Barbizon School, which was started in the 1830s in France as a reaction to the neoclassical style of art that was so predominant in the salons and the general public at that time, of the Abraham Lincoln Memorial and most of Washington, D.C. Those architectural styles and sculptural styles represented a lot of the ideals of Greek society, and that was called the neoclassical phase. So these guys at the Barbizon School were reacting to that in that they wanted to reach a freedom. They wanted to paint nature and realism that they saw in nature. They had reduced tones, emotional feelings were portrayed in their paintings, and there was a great interest in seeking out these natural settings. And it gave an idea of freedom that was not necessarily attached to the neoclassical ideas in art. Some of the artists that I wanted to mention that are influential, although there are so many, it's very difficult, but I had to narrow down for this presentation. But George Ennis is one of these artists from that period of time, again around the 1830s, mid-1800s. Very beautiful landscapes and pictorial styles that influence me directly in the work that I do today, that I enjoy emulating his style for the landscapes. As for the horses, which I enjoy painting in my work, Alfred Munnings is a very big influence in my work. A British artist of the same particular genre as far as some of the stylistic landscape goes, but very predominantly much of a horse artist. And some of the images that I've brought today, this evening, are some of the sketching. One of the sketches that I've brought of Alfred Munnings is a fairly tight sketch, and you will see a similarity to that, and some that I brought that I will be showing later of my work that are color sketches or value sketches to depict the form of the horse that will be later put into a composition. And one of the other sketches that I've included is one that looks almost like a chicken scratch, very rough sketch. And that's to indicate that sometimes it's really important just to get the notion of the idea, where things are placed and how they are there, and maybe everything's moving, and maybe it's like a carnival atmosphere. You have to capture it as quickly as possible. There's no time for rendering it out and painting every eyelash or drawing every detail. So without any further ado, we'll get to showing you a few of the examples of some of the things that I use in my process for my paintings, and we'll see you soon. And so this is where we look at formats. We look at elements within the composition. So we take, for example, just a basic section of area which we might be going to use for the composition. We decide where things are going to go and how things are going to go in there. So we want to consider the whole space within this area. We want to talk about the idea of of movement within it, it's, at least for my kind of work. And again, I'm speaking of my work. I don't mean to imply that everybody works this way, and of course you may have your own way of doing things. And I'm just trying to offer up something that works for me and show you a little bit about how I work and the kind of things that are incorporated to working toward my final compositions and paintings. So these areas are what we're going to be dealing with as an interior space. And we may have something so simplistic as to just have an animal sitting in the middle of the area here that is possibly just standing in front of, who knows, desert or whatever. We may have a format which is elongated, where we have an animal that's over here and it's looking at something on the left-hand side of the composition. So the animal is giving sort of a movement across the composition, and maybe we like that. Maybe we push this direction so that there's something over here in the background, like a house or the moon or something like that. This is the beginning of a composition. It's not just a singular object in the middle of the picture plane. It has some kind of implication of movement, and it's going to have an implication of movement that's going to create interest for the viewer. And if we want to work on top of that as an idea, we will then pull in all kinds of value and color, and the timing of all those elements together will end up being the final piece. But now we need to stop at this phase so that we can see where we're going with it and what we're going to do with it. Again, maybe we don't like this so much because it's too direct. So we want to add something else, change the format. Maybe we want there to be something that's creating tension, so that we are dealing with the element of not just linear direction in the composition, but maybe there's sort of a sense of perspective. Maybe there's an animal that's up on top of a peak or something, and this is creating a void down there, and this animal's head and neck is dropping down. So we're creating something that's not just telling the story, but it's telling a story that's, again, going to create an emotion and evoke emotion for the subject matter we're painting here. So again, maybe to use the old cliche of the old moon or the sun back here, but it's working to demonstrate this as an element relating to another element in the composition. So this is what you're doing, or what I'm doing, when I'm looking at the possibilities for my final painting. Again, on this one I'll show, perhaps I let this go into darkness so that I can start to play around with the kind of things that I'm going to see in my composition. Now I'm starting to feel like what is light and what is dark, and where light is coming from. Right here I'm using a kneaded eraser, and along with the charcoal pencil on the tone paper, I can take the kneaded eraser and pull back some of the tone and create a little bit of an indication of a highlight. So it's very small. I know it's very small. I'm not sure if it's being picked up by the camera, but you start to see a sequence here of a manipulation of the form, of where it's going to go and what it's going to look like. And now we can start to see more of what it is that's really making it look right. Maybe we are paying a little bit more attention to where pieces and parts of the animal are and what it's making us feel about the overall elements. It's not going to stay so loose for so long. It's going to be developed in a way that we can talk about where each piece is and where the elements are going to be placed for the final painting. So here again, you're looking at possibilities for how this is lit. In my case, sometimes I like to add a little bit of movement and place elements in here that you can see help this factor out to where it's going and what it's trying to be as a final. So you have your elements here, you have perhaps you have even more going on. You may have a structure of indication of sky. You may have elements of color and value that are coming through that are your timing. You're going to have your values, most contrast in the foreground, leading back to atmospheric perspective, just an example, so that you have a hierarchy of importance in the composition. They're really starting to take simplistic, more complicated, and more complicated until you get to the position where literally you're going to be making the decisions, and you're going to be transferring this onto a canvas or a board, and you're going to be going in for paint. So the proportions of this being somewhat similar, then your aspect ratio is going to be similar. You know, if one's a square and one's not, you know, it doesn't work. But if they're close, I like to transfer these onto canvas or artboard so that I can begin the process of working with colors, values, and actually using the paint. So I have my drawing and I have my composition, and I'm fairly happy with something as far as the direction it's going. So I need to transfer that to something that I can actually put paint on. So I've taken this miniature composition that I have here, that I call it, and I've basically struck grid lines here. I can get as detailed as I want with these, but I'm basically cutting it in half and then cutting those pieces in half, vertically and horizontally. And it's a very age-old technique for transferring things. What I like to do myself is not be so detailed with it, and then it gives me a little bit of a creative license as I'm going. Maybe I adjust it. Maybe I make one part further along than the other one. But still, it gives you an idea of how this image is going to be transferred into here without just totally trying to eyeball it and maybe getting something out of whack or in the wrong place. And it's just going to cause more of a heartache later when you're painting and you have to redo something. Might as well get it right as best you can at the first start of it. I'm going to be dividing my canvas shapes into the same divisions that I've divided the drawing composition in. And now I've got these sections of lines representing these sections on my canvas. And here is a time when you do kind of want to pay attention to the accuracy of these, because as you can imagine, if something is a little too far off left or right, you're going to end up with something scrunched down or something that's no room for a part of the piece that you've designed here. So you can see these grid lines represent the same grid lines that are here on this drawing, compositional drawing. That this is where you get to basically kind of lay in these sections that are represented here. So you can see that you have like the head of the horse here, which is very close to the center. So you can just kind of put that in, and I'm going to just generally do it so that you can get the idea here. We see that the arch of the withers of the horse here popping up into this upper grid here comes about that high. We're going to just realize that that's going to be connecting with part of the head of the horse, which is here. So we can see it almost piecing together like a puzzle would, and connecting these to where the corresponding spots are on the grid, and find out where the horizon fits, where the section of the land that the animal's standing on may be. Here we have this little section coming down, and we find that that is indicated in that zone or quadrant or whatever. So we want to be accurate here about the placement of things like the feet, and we see that they're coming in here. So I'm trying to make a little bit of a pressing down a little so that you can see this on the video. But what you've got in essence is transfer of this composition to this grid line, which is on this canvas board, including in everything that you have in the composition, wherever it is, including if you had these clouds here. And so this is what we're going to do in transferring this, but we're going to do this on the actual large canvas board, which will be the final painting. Now I'll go ahead and reveal to you that I've gone ahead and transferred on the grid sense that we did before. I've used the same technique to transfer the compositional drawing onto what might be used as my final painting. In this case, I basically have glued a very fine canvas, very fine tooth canvas, down to a piece of masonite. Makes a very flat surface to paint on, and the tooth of the canvas is just enough for this size to be a nice tooth for this size painting. The tone that I put on these is I have a yellow ochre mixed with a little bit of raw sienna. I like to tone them so that there's a medium tone. I can see the lines that are the dark lines I'm indicating whether it's pencil or paint, and I can also see some lights if I want to pop a highlight in something or put a whole zone of color in. I start out with the toned canvases or a toned board so that I can have the control of both light and dark. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the techniques to starting up with just laying in the tone for what the painting is going to represent as a final painting. And as you might have noticed, many of these stages are very abbreviated because we're trying to condense this into this video to show everybody, and we only have so much time to do it. But if you take your time and you use these aspects, which is what I do, it usually takes me quite a bit longer to work through all these stages. And I choose to take my time so that I can actually build it up pretty much exactly the way I want it, and I'm not really compromising anything. So all right, at this point we're going to be looking at how I like to lay in my tones for the painting. As I've said, I've got the grid structure here, and I've placed some of the elements that are from my compositional sketch into this composition here for the painting. And I've got a little bit of raw umber and burnt sienna. I've got some other tones in here that I can mix in to lighten and darken as I go. So I don't like it to be too dark, and yet it's got to be dark enough that you can see it. So you can just kind of look at some of these lines that I can see from here, and you can see how that's my choice to come in here and find where my points are, whether it's foreground, background. The subject matter here is going to be depicted by me deciding where things go. And I'm kind of doing a technique here of putting in the form based on the contour, but I'm also stepping into some shadow zones because I can kind of tell, at least for what I've decided to do here, what I'm going to do with my shadows. So this is also a fairly small detailed for this size of brush. I'm using a larger brush than I might have, but that's okay because I like to do that, and it kind of blurs the line between what's really there and what I really want to see, because I can go back and forth as I use these brush strokes. And so what I'm doing now is the culmination of what I've been talking about today, which is to show you the stages of getting to this position here with what you're wanting to get to as far as a final a painting. At least is the way that I choose to work. And as you can tell, this basically sets the guidelines for what I might do with the colors as I build this up. And you can kind of make a lot of adjustments as you go with this technique. It's why I like to use this. Again, you're going to be indicating maybe the clouds. It's not something that's got to be too detailed unless you really want to have a particular rendition of something, and it means that it has to be specific, because a lot of changes can be made to this. And so we've come from the position of an idea, and at least it's what I wanted to show today, this evening, was the idea that we started out with as maybe you've got your own idea, maybe I've got my own idea, and how do we get pushed along to where we have an actual painting that may involve these elements of anatomy and color and those types of things. In this case, the shading. Where do I want things to be? How do I want this to fall off into shade over here? So this sets us up for a position in which if I've gotten this to this position, I can now put some kind of colors. I can go in and decide whether I want something to be a particular color, let's say that, in the sky, whatever. This is the representation here of how that the lights on this tone canvas can start to work for you. Again, very roughly, I'm just throwing these in to give you the idea of how I see these modifying forms in this composition. So I think, as you can see from this, it allows you to see that the way that I want to manipulate this has been aided by all of these preliminary sketches and things that I've done to show the direction to myself and reveal it into a position where I can work from something now that I'm not just completely making it up out of my head, and I'm not just using something that is going to be, oh, it's too big, it's too small. The structure that I've laid out is something that makes me feel comfortable moving into a final painting. And this would be ready now to go ahead and pick the colors that I want to use and add them to this composition now that I've set this up in a very basic way. So I hope you've enjoyed this little demonstration here and some of the things that I've chosen to show you today, and maybe it can help you some of these days that we're still holding out, waiting. Everybody's waiting to get back to some normal times. We can maybe this will shed light on something that you already do, or maybe that you are interested in doing. It's just one way that I like to work, and perhaps just at least being interested in how we all do things a little differently. This can maybe add or just be of an interest to you. I hope that if you have any comments, you'll feel free to leave them in the comments section below, and any questions you might have, feel free to do that. And if you're interested at all in becoming a member, we're always welcoming that at the Art Consortium, and we look forward to any interaction that we all can have in the future. But for now, we're going to be able to correspond with each other in this way. So feel free to like our channel, and subscribe if you'd like. If you're interested, you can see my work on my website, which is brenthudspeth.com, and I have other pieces that are there on the website. I'm always looking forward to whatever shows are coming up this next few months or in the future, and hopefully we can share more in the future. I've enjoyed this today, and I hope you have as well. So stay tuned. We've got more coming, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Outstanding. I would like to ask you to stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.